my whole life is fear-based. My whole life, my foundation is built on fear. And so it stunned me that I didn't know that. And I don't know if anybody else did. Maybe my parents were poor little Johnny, so fearful. And they prayed about that, and here I am today and standing in front of people. This isn't my first choice, to be in front of people. And so really understanding this, going through the process of dealing with fear and resentments and all that, and on my own healing journey through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and getting joined with a prayer ministry, and going through some of the foundational stuff, and looking at belief systems, and kind of shattering some of the stuff that I believed in that wasn't healthy. I got into ministry. I got into serving people to stay sober. That's what I had to do. And I started working with a men's ministry with mentally ill people. And then I got the honor of starting a rehab center and helped develop that for 8 years. And I was probably 5 years into this. And I was, John from Jericho Road, the addiction guy. The guy that gets people out of jail, the guy that gets people sober. And, I'm this guy. And the director for the ministry, I found that me and him had a really tight relationship, and we were BFFs, and he went through some marriage stuff and got a divorce and ended up living at one of the houses, but he was all encompassed in what he did, and he's a great man and affected many lives. And what I realized is that I remember telling him that I was going away to Montreal for the weekend, and he goes, "I don't think that's a good idea." I'm like, "Well, I'm going away on a conference. I don't work every weekend. I don't work weekends, and there's stuff in place, and don't worry, I got everything under control." And I remember him saying, "No, you can't, because there's 2 new guys in that house, there's a guy over there, and I need you." And I just remember going, I've created him to need me. And I'm going to tell him, "No, I'm going to go away. What are you going to do about it? Because you need me so much that you're not really going to get mad at me." So that was kind of the beginning of something. I didn't really realize, but I had this relationship with him that was super unhealthy. And a little while later, there came a point where I stood up, and I stood my ground, and there was a new director that kind of took over, and I suggested that he take a break because he was he needs a break. And I was coming from a great heart, and he took that as a shot at him. And so over the next month, there was a letter compiled against me from one of the students that was in our treatment center. And this guy turns out to be a professional victim, and had gone to court for sex abuse, and had won a couple court cases, and what had happened with him had turned him back into victim mode, and he wrote a 60-page letter against me, went to all the groups, all the churches that I'd been a part of, and I was like, why? And the director supported it. And so they came up to the conclusion that I'm a bully, and I have to be punished. And so I was I got called into a meeting, and where I was asked to hand over my keys. And the chair of the board at the time was my mentor, and he goes, "John, just trust me. You're released of all duty, but you get paid, and until further notice, we're taking all your responsibilities." So I gave him the keys, basically gave him the finger. I gave all the Christians the finger and said, "You people are the worst people. This is so hurtful. Whatever, you don't know what I do. I run everything. What are you going to do without me?" And I walked out of the room. That night, the new director called me and said, "John, what do I do? There's a fist fight going on in the second stage home." I go, "I don't know. I'd call the cops if I were you. Not working. Goodbye." And so over the course of the next couple of months, I would have thought it was a holiday, but it wasn't. I was obsessed with it every 5 minutes because John's a bully. No, that's where I came from. That's my old life. Some of the stuff that was written was true. And I hated that because our family was very enmeshed. with what we did, and my sons came to the coffee house that we did every week. And one of the guys with a mental illness got a big settlement with ODSP, and he bought my son an iPod. At the time, they got along, and I didn't think much of it, but I'm taking advantage of people in my care. And I look back on it and go, man. And then there was this incident and that incident. Some of it was true. Most of it was a lie. And what it did was raise questions in the addiction community. Oh, John must be using. He's on relapse. And so now I'm being criticized, and at this meeting that I used, and it was horrible. It was a horrific thing to go through. I remember thinking, like, this should be fun. Like, I should be living the dream. I'm getting paid to do nothing. I remember once I decided I got going in the morning, had my morning devotionals and whatnot, and then I was going to work out, and I was going to make dinner. And I caught myself in the kitchen, standing there in my workout clothes, and it was dinner time. And I was like, I don't know how long I've been here. I haven't worked out or cooked dinner, and my wife's going to get home. I'm going to get in trouble. Oh no. But that's how my mind was just filled with this. But what it did, and I had good support system, what it did was allowed me the ability to face what was wrong. And so I went up, I had sessions with my mentor, and we talked about stuff, prayed about stuff. I was able to get away to a retreat center that I'm involved in. And we went through a healing process. And as somebody that's been through the 12 steps and led people through it and am a leader, I thought I was past all this. But God really, He wants to bring wholeness. And there was a big part of my foundation that I got to find out that was full of fear. And so in this time of prayer, a couple things happened. They asked questions, and I reflect, and they just said, just ask God to show you a picture of being a little kid. And so I was adopted at 2 or so, and there was the Ruby photo that we have. There's the big Ruby photo with big Percy Ruby sitting in the middle with his kingdom there, and I'm sitting, little Johnny Ruby, on a little chair, and I started laughing. As God showed me this picture, I started laughing because in that story, after the picture was taken, I fell off. I fell off my little stool. And I only know that because my parents told me, but I started laughing and crying because on my back was a backpack. And it wasn't really. Spiritually, there was a red backpack. It was nylon. And it was on my back, and it caused me to fall off my chair. And it's funny because when we went into the mission field as missionary kids, my dad, back then there was no Google and word searching and online theology books. Pa brought like the library with him. So little John and Steve Ruby, at the ages of, this is real child labor, we're loaded with books, like theology books, and they're in this red backpack. And I remember trying to run through the airport, and for some odd reason, we're always running through the airport because we're always late for the plane. And we're running, and I have this red backpack, and I see, God shows me this picture, the camera goes, and I fall over because I have this backpack. And it's funny, and I started laughing, but then I started crying because I don't want to have this backpack. It's causing problems. And so they said, what's in the backpack? And I just saw the word fear. And I saw the word fear of punishment. And then we started discussing that. So there's punishment, and there's discipline. Discipline, I enjoy. If you want to be competitive, let's do some disciplines. Like, that's instructions. A set of instructions, I'll carry it out. You don't want to go toe-to-toe with me with, like, let's see how long we cannot eat gluten and sugar. Like, I'm good at that. Like, I might not look like it, but I'll still do it. And so I like instructions. I like a plan. I like the gym thing where you have this weekly plan and the discipline of doing it this time and this hour. Morning devotionals, that stuff's easy for me, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the box of discipline, the box of structure, and a set of instructions. And then what I looked at was, and what we prayed about was this punishment. What is punishment? And what punishment is authority reacting to an offense. That's what punishment is. And so I looked at the concept of what had happened with me and the director, and really what I did, I'm scared of him. I'm fearful of authority, and so what I did, I made sure that authority